I'm Victoria.
I'm Laura.
And welcome to Novel. Hi everyone. Hello. Welcome to Novel Nights. We are back live.
Yes.
This is live, everyone. We're back from holiday break. We took some time off, just to decompress, but it was a holiday season. I had family around. And so we're back live. Nice to be with you. And today we're doing comforting and cozy reads. It means something different to each of us, but we are really excited to share our book recommendations. As always, we have different recommendations, but let us know in the comments what books are comforting and cozy to you. So if you're watching us live, we'd love to hear from you. Replay crew, we'd love to hear from you as well. Let us know in the comments what is comforting and what is cozy. But before we get into the book recommendations, we want to talk about a little book news. We have one big thing, audiobook news. I'm going to throw it to Francesca to tell us about Everand and their changes. Fran, what is going on?
Yeah, so actually the big change that we kind of learned about recently is that Everand is changing their pricing basically. And Everand, if you don't know about it, it's a service where you can listen to audiobooks. It's always been a service where you pay one monthly fee and you can listen to any audiobook basically unlimited within their catalog. Now, there are some caveats to that. It's not 100% unlimited. They do kind of limit what you can access. And sometimes it's in base of publishers. There's no real transparency as to how they do it. But if you have a vast amount of books saved that you want to listen to, you pretty much can listen to an unlimited number of books. And that's always been the biggest selling point. It used to be $11.99 and you can listen unlimited. Now you're not buying the books. It's kind of like Kindle Unlimited where you're borrowing the books and returning them kind of thing. And it's always been something that I've always found a lot of great books on there. And sometimes even like really great new releases can be on there available. So I think that there's been a lot of fans of the service because of that. And they changed their pricing structure. They've had a lot of, I guess they call it feedback on the fact that there's no transparency on how they limit the number of books that people are able to listen to. And their way of fixing that was to change their pricing structure to now charge, basically you're getting like credits and it will work almost like Audible, but you're not buying the books. So you're still paying to borrow, but you're only basically going to be getting like the equivalent of listening to one book because you're paying that money to unlock credits, and those credits will then allow you to unlock books. So I feel like, in my opinion at least, so my controversial opinion, I don't know if you could call it, is it feels like they're trying to go to a model that feels very much like Audible. But if I'm going to pay $11.99 to $16.99, I would much rather just own the audiobook. So you could go to Audible or Libro FM or any other service and just buy that credit and buy the book. So then you have it to re-listen anytime you want. So I'm not really sure how well that's going to go for them. But according to them, it was in response to the lack of transparency and being able to give people access to the whole catalog. You would just buy however many credits you want to unlock however many audiobooks you want for the month. So I guess they feel that that was a good solution to the problem. In my opinion, not really, because I would much rather have that unlimited ability. And if I get stopped from listening a particular author, a particular series, or however they do it, I was fine with it because I have so many other books that I can listen to. So I don't know. That's how I feel about it, but I feel like it's a little bit of a controversial take for them to completely switch gears on how they're selling their service because it's going completely away from what they were really about. So
Right. No, that makes absolute sense. So, audiobook folks, let us know in the comments, what are your thoughts on these changes? I mean, do you use that platform? Regardless, we'd love to hear from you. Replay crew, we'd love to hear from you too. But Laura, there's also changes with Amazon Music. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Amazon Music is trying to compete with Spotify. As if you may be aware, if you're a Spotify premium user, Spotify allows you to listen to 15 hours of an audiobook per month. while you're active. And it only works for, if you're in a family Spotify, it only works for the household owner. So they're the ones who get the access to us. And it's by hours. It's not listening hours. It's actually hours of the actual book. So Amazon's like, you know what? We're in the game. We have music. We're trying to compete them. They're very aggressive about the Amazon Music library. And they're like, you know what? We're going to do the same thing. But we got Audible as part of our suite of services. So we're going to give you one title of Audible you can borrow per month. We're not going to limit how long the audiobook is. It's just one title of Audible. So you can listen to that month, that title. And then every month that you have an option to change your title. So you can continue to listen to the title until the way through if you miss that month, or you can just change the title every month and you have like one title. So it actually has access to, if you're not aware, Audible actually has a lot of like exclusive titles. They're only available on Audible because of royalties, because audiobooks are really expensive to make, so they give a good royalty matchup. So you'll get access to those Audible originals that you may not be able to afford. You may not be able to find them in a library. So if you're a Spotify user and you want to switch over to Amazon Music, they're having a deal. I would suggest try the deal. If you don't like it, go back, wait 6 months, get another deal. That's the best way to approach a lot of these Amazon products. Same goes with Audible, same goes with Kindle Unlimited. Just wait 6 months, you get the new deal for 99 cents. So right now, I think they're offering free for the first 3 months, and then you just have to pay $11.99. So it's still cheaper than a credit. You don't own the title, but if you're one of those listeners like myself who just listens once and won't go back to it, this is a great add-on service along with the catalog of music. So if you're a music listener, you may not get your Spotify wrapped up, but this is just another catalog of service. And maybe they'll compete with you, because I know YouTube does a wrap up. So I'm assuming they'll do the wrap up music too. So
yeah, that's awesome to hear. I mean, so folks, if you are into audiobooks, it's really good information. So at least now you know what's happening, what's going on. You can make decisions and make choices from there as well. Now, in other news, we have award news, like book award season and announcements, best of list. It's the time of year, that's where we're at. The one list I want to highlight is the New York Times 10 best books. That list was released this week. Last week, the New York Times shared their 100 most notable books. I did a video on both of those, so you can check my channel out for those details. Essentially, the New York Times is super literary. Okay, I saw lots of folks on social media saying, again, no thrillers, no historical fiction. Hate to break it to you, it's super literary. I love that, so I guess it's good for me. My only comment I will say is I'm happy to see James made the list. I kind of had a gut feeling it would. They shared 5 fiction, 5 nonfiction. The nonfiction books, I have no say. I didn't read as much nonfiction this year, and there was nothing that really stood out to me that I read. The 100 notable list, though, has a variety. So you will find some thrillers there and other things. But that's like a really big deal, the New York Times list. Also, we have Goodreads Awards. So the Goodreads Awards, that was announced today, actually. So that is new news. So Goodreads announced their Reader's Choice Awards. Let's be clear, it's a popularity contest, okay? They had awards in 15 categories. We had Emily Henry winning 2, Best Romance, Best Audiobook for her new book, was it Funny Story? Mm-hmm. So we have that. I think a lot of the winners were predictable. I will say I was a bit sad that some of my favorites didn't come up to the top. I was rooting for a science fiction fantasy book, Stardust Grail, Yumi Kitasai, did not happen. And there are lots of other books too. So needless to say, it's a popularity contest, but 6.2 million votes came in for the Goodreads Awards. But I'm curious, what did you all think? Francesca, I know you have thoughts.
Well, I mean, pretty much what you just said. It's like whatever are the really big name authors, that's who won. I had already said that for sure Emily Henry was going to take both romance and audiobook. Sarah J. Maas for sure was going to take the romantasy. I feel like everything was pretty much, like you said, very, very predictable. I will say I was surprised with the young adult fantasy and young adult fiction. Um, I know both of those books, and I know that they were popular and they're popular authors and all of that. But I was actually thinking that other books that were up for nomination were more popular, like even talking popularity contest. So those two really were my two surprises from the
Right, right.
winners.
Also, I did say Stephen King was going to win horror. Okay. I love that collection, by the way. I did. Other books could have won, but I just think he has name recognition. So I just wanted to mention that. Laura, what did you think?
I think the memoir is surprising, but at the same time, when I think about it, it's not surprising because everyone loves Gilmore Girls. And so it's the Gilmore Girls, it's the fall, it's the time of the year. We all love to just watch the show. That I remember watching it while in college and be like, well, there's another show that's better than this one, but we're going to watch Gilmore Girls now. So I think it's like, it has nostalgia. I wish Ina had one, but I feel like Ina didn't have the like nostalgia and the Gen Z people and most people reading, they're like, it's Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
Even though Kelly Bishop has done more than Gilmore Girls, she's been Dirty Dancing. She's the mom for Dirty Dancing, but it's still.
Yeah, but I guess it's predictable. So, that's it for book news. Lots of audiobook platform changes. It's awards season, so there's lots of content there. And plus, we've been talking about these things across our social media platforms, so especially Substack. So be sure to check out our Substacks, for sure, links in the video's description. But let us know in the comments if you're watching live, if you're watching the replays later on. We'd love to hear from you as well. Let us know in the comments, what do you think about all the audiobook platform changes? But also, what do you think about these awards and best of list, particularly the Goodreads Choice Awards and the New York Times 10 Best and 100 Most Notable Books? We'd love to hear from you. So let us know in the comments. Okay, so now we're going to get into the topic of today. So today's topic is comforting and cozy reads. And kind of like I said at the top, comforting and cozy reads means completely different things to each of us. And you'll realize that in our book recommendations. So I will be sharing first. I will be sharing classic books. And this platform is new, so you'll bear with me. But the first classic book I want to share is Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont. I've reread this book at least half a dozen times. I think it's very comforting to me. And to be fair, classics are comforting, and books I've read in the past that I loved, I find those comforting. So when I reread something, 9 out of 10 times it's for comfort, unless I'm reading it to create content for y'all. And this one is a very regularly visited comfort read. So Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont centers a widow. Her name is Mrs. Palfrey. Now she moves into the Claremont Hotel. And this was like a boarding house for retired women, widowed women, that kind of thing. And while there, she is she wants to maintain her independence. Like, she cares about how she's seen and how she's perceived. So, and I mean, I'm sure all of us would want to be that way when we get older, is to maintain some dignity and or independence. So we see her kind of navigating the different dynamics with the residents at the Claremont. And then one day she has this interaction with this young man. He's a writer, Ludo, and it just changes her perspective on everything. I would dare say it's like me, the elder millennial, meeting up with someone who's a Gen Zer. You know what I'm saying? And them just kind of giving you their perspectives on life and that kind of thing, their family history, their ambitions and that kind of thing. So we see this unexpected friendship blossom between the two. And, it brings moments of joy and humor, but also we see reflections on aging, but also loneliness, because you find out Ludo is also lonely too. And just kind of like the search for meaning in life. It's just a very tender, but also bittersweet story. And I think Elizabeth Taylor shines with, how do I say it, like human relationships. She just writes it really well. It's just very nuanced, very detailed. There's lots of laughter, lots of tears. But I think this book really is comforting to me because it's a reminder that the connections we make in life is part of what makes life worth living. So if y'all haven't read this one already, I mean, I have so many memories when I just think of it, and who knows, I might pick it up this winter. But Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont. Okay, the next book is probably popular to lots of you, and it's Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I love this one so, so much. I don't think this book needs an introduction, but needless to say, it's a beloved classic. It follows four sisters. We have Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy. And we see these four sisters and their lives with the backdrop of the Civil War. Each sister has their own struggle. One wants to pursue like a literary dream. We have one who has a more quiet battle with an illness. We see the families bond at the center. And it's just a story filled with love, but also sacrifice, the ups and downs of growing up, but also the ups and downs of life. I like this because it kind of feels like I'm getting together with my family again. You know, I grew up in an extended family. So I grew up with my mom, my dad, my sister, but also my paternal grandparents, you know, and, you know, you kind of like that extended family feeling. That's how I feel when I'm reading this book. It's like they're an extension of my family. So you're going to be cheering for the sisters, I feel. You're going to see them navigate, you know, ambition, love, heartbreak, joy. But it's also a story of like self-resilience and discovery. And if you want to be reminded of life's simple but beautiful moments, you're going to read Little Women. You know, I just think it stands out for that. And yeah, I'm always thinking about it. Now, I know I said I read Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont at least half a dozen times. Well, this book that I'm sharing with you, I've read over 24 times. How about that? And it's 84 Charing Cross Road by Helen Hanff. I think this is very popular, especially amongst bookworms, like hardcore lifelong bookworms. This is a book about books, but it's unique in that it's nonfiction and it's also a collection of real life letters. So let me explain my reread situation. I will reread sometimes the book in its entirety, but then many times I'll just go back and read a letter. So this is a collection of real life letters exchanged between the author, Helen Hanff. She is a writer. She's a witty, book-loving person. She's living in New York City. And she's corresponding with this man called Frank Dole. He is a bookseller. He's in the UK. And we see how they communicate over 2 years. It started with her reaching out because she wanted certain books, you know, certain editions. She is very blunt in saying, look, I don't have a lot of money to purchase some of these books. And they go back and forth until she kind of gets the books that she wants. But you realize that they're building a friendship throughout these letters. So what started off as, I guess you could say, very transactional turns out to be sometimes some very funny letters, some very crass letters. But I think what I loved is just, you know, the heartfelt friendship in letters. And as a person who loves pen pals and I write and I do letters all the time, it just, you know, it's just a celebration of human beings, books, and just across Atlantic camaraderie. And this is also set post wartime. So, you know, like these people are going through rations as well. And you see her even wanting to send a package to them. You see how much like something as, you know, simple as stockings will mean to someone, and, you know, little food items and stuff. So it just, I love it. Okay. It's delightful. It feels like you're chatting with a friend, you know, kindred spirits. I think it's just, it's very comforting for book people who love bookshops, who love letter writing and just connecting over, you know, your shared love of literature. There's also a book that follows up 84 Charing Cross Road, but this is an OG and I think it's just very, very well done. Okay, the next classic that I find incredibly comforting is, yes, I know it's a children's book, but I love it anyway. And it's A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Now, I am a girl who loves The Secret Garden. I've said it a million times. It's one of my favorite books. My grandmother had a very beautiful garden. I mean, she'd sell some flowers. People would come and just look at the flowers. So I love The Secret Garden. I don't find The Secret Garden as comforting as I do A Little Princess. So anyway, in this one, we meet a young girl who's very, you know, pampered. She's at boarding school. She's used to a very posh upbringing, but her life, unfortunately, after her father dies, drastically changes. So now she's living one, way below standards that she's used to. Basically, she's below the poverty line at this point, and she's going through lots of hardship because, again, her father passed away. Now, despite her new circumstances, again, which she's not used to, she refuses to just kind of lose the joy and happiness about her life and just, the kindness that she has. And also, for young girls, their brilliant imagination. So we see her just kind of coming up with stories to kind of uplift herself and uplift others. And she just shows a lot of resilience for a young girl and just how that, goodness can triumph over adversity. So this is very heartwarming and hopeful that for me, it transports me back to childhood. It gives you that fairy tale charm. So that's what I think I gravitate to and I find comfort in. But also you get like messages of just, compassion and hope and just, the magic of the strength you can find within yourself. So yes, I'm a big fan of A Little Princess. And then the last one is I had to throw in an Austen in there. I love Jane Austen. And Emma for me is just funny. Okay. I'm not saying it's the best Austen or anything like that. No. However, it's witty. And for me, that's comforting. So Emma is just wealthy, headstrong, young woman. She thinks she's an amazing matchmaker, but her meddling in other people's love lives just leads to a series of chaos, catastrophe, misadventures, but it's also kind of comical. So, lots of comical adventures occur. But along the way, we see Emma learning some valuable lessons about life and, humility and just be self-aware. I think that's a thing. Emma is just has zero self-awareness. And I think that's what I find kind of a bit funny. So Austen has a special style, no question about it. But this one, it's just very witty. It's just delightful, humor-filled. You're going to find social commentary, as always, in all Austen books. But it's a story about like growth and romance. And I feel like you're just sitting down with a friend. You have that one friend who's a hoot. That's just really funny and entertaining. So I think this is comforting because it has both the warmth and the charm we're used to with Austen, but also it's just incredibly witty. So I love it. I'd love to hear from you all as well, but let me know in the comments, what are some of your favorite comforting classic books? I'd love to hear from you. So if you're watching live, let me know in the comments. Replay crew, I'd love to hear from you. But yes, those are some of my favorite comforting classics. What did you all think?
I love
Women.
Jinx.
Okay, so who loves Little Women more? Fran, okay, what do you love about Little Women the most?
I think exactly what you said. It's like revisiting family. It has that vibe that you just feel like you're part of the family. Like I love it. And if I ever see a Little Women retelling, like I have to read it just because like it just, I want to be back there again.
No, I get that vibe. But Laura, you are the Emma gal.
I am Emma all the way through. I think because I grew up watching Clueless, and it was like Clueless was the first teen movie that came out in the 90s, like mid 1995. And I was so excited to live in Beverly Hills. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I absolutely loved it. And then I love all the retellings. Like, I know there's a lot of retellings for Pride and Prejudice, but there's something to be said about Emma's retellings are just this clueless girl meddling around, wealth of privilege, and just trying to make, do good in the world, like in the same team. Like, you're like, oh, you feel for her, but it's just, I don't know, it's just comforting. Like, I just want to like hang out with Emma.
Right? That's what I'm saying. I know, that's why I kind of like, I wanted to say, I know it's not the best Austen, and I know everyone, don't come.
It is my favorite. So it is the best Austen for my side of the street. It is the best Austen. So
amazing. I think it's super, super, super comforting. Okay. So next up, Laura is going to be sharing some recommendations with us. We are going to disappear, and I'm really excited to hear what Laura has to share.
All right, so I split it into three different comforts. So this year has been the year of audiobooks. I'm listening to audiobooks at night. It just comforts, it soothes me, and it's just trying to figure out like not have a nightmare. So that's like my goal. So I haven't listened to a lot of thrillers or anything dark stuff. Like it's been comforting listens to. So the first couple of books are actually nonfiction, but they're kind of like the good nonfiction that I consider. So they're TV nonfiction. So they're oral histories or information about the TV. So the first book is Office Lady of the Office BFFs, which is based on the actual podcast, The Office Ladies, with Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey. If you're not familiar, The Office was a show about that came out in the aughts about working in an office. And this series basically they're just retelling their time working in the office. Jenna plays Pam, who is a receptionist and later on becomes a sales agent. And Angela works in accounting and has a love story with Dwight, So it is a lovely time. Other characters, other actors show up in the audiobook. They both narrated. They're both our BFFs and they both like to talk to each other. And it's just like comforting just hanging out with them. I remember watching The Office when it came out because it was my first job at NYU. And so I remember just downloading the episodes on my little iPod Touch that tells me how old I am because they don't exist anymore, and watching the show on the subway. So it's just like a comforting, like just nostalgia place. So The Office is just like a fun show to watch. If you haven't watched the original BBC 2 seasons, I definitely recommend. And then go back to the US, and it's just comforting. So I'm actually looking forward to the Parks and Rec audiobook that came out. It's called Pawnee. It's by Jerry or Gary. So that's actually that's on my queue to listen to. And that's the Parks and Rec is similar idea, same producers, but this was in a government office. The second audiobook is Welcome to the OC by all the actors and producers and everyone else in between. So this one's also actors and producers and show up into the story, but it's the oral history of the OC. If you're not familiar, the OC was a show that came out in 2003, and it's basically originator of the Real Housewives of Orange County, Laguna Beach, Desperate Housewives. All these shows came from this particular show. This is like the origin story. And it tells you the story about this like teenage show that happened in the OC and wealthy people living, and it's just teenage behaving badly. And it's great. They explain how this young producer, writer, he was probably in his early 20s, like was the showrunner. And like that's unheard of in Hollywood. And how he burned through stories, because the first season of OC is like 28 episodes and they burn through the whole, like if you think about Hollywood and shows, they burn through so many stories. They're like, so it made sense for the show to end when it ended. It made sense for things to happen because they had done so much in the first season. It is a great show. It's a great book to listen to. You get some of the tea, you get some of the information about the cast and like how things were and why things were the way they are. If you have watched Adam Brody's Renaissance, this is a great where the origin story comes in. So it's great. I actually enjoy listen to this and listen to the music because this is like OC was the first show that included music, relevant indie music, and that scene of the aughts, like that's the music that came up, and they tell you how it was planned and how they incorporated. And other shows, like I just started watching Grey's Anatomy, and I noticed the music at the beginning of the early aughts is that it becomes for this show. So music, it has a chapter and then it has a chapter about pilot, and then watching the pilot and seeing after you understand who made the pilot and what happened, actually watching the show, you're like, it makes more sense. So it's a really good way to watch and understand something from an original TV stuff. Other memorable audiobooks that I would say, The West Wing is great. It's a little longer. It's like, but it's pretty great about if you're a West Wing nut, you actually watch the show. This is a great audiobook to listen to. There's a Mean Girls one about the oral history of Mean Girls. So you get to understand the cast and Lindsay Lohan and all the things. So if you're looking for TV, if you're looking for nonfiction that feels like dull nonfiction, but it's interesting, the TV niche is a great place to go. So the second niche that actually, a second genre that I'm actually focusing on is cozy mysteries. This is the first year that I listened to, I would say like 80 cozy mysteries. That's pretty much my comforting. So the first book that I recommend, I think, is The Body in the Bookstore by Ellie Alexander. It's a short 6-hour cozy mystery book, or is The French Murder. I think, I can't see the. Okay, The Body in the Bookstore by Ellie Alexander. This book is actually like a great book. It's your starter. It starts in a small town. I think it's Redding, California. There's the sleuth is a former criminal justice student whose best friend passed away from mysterious reasons, and so she decided to retreat back and go to what she feels safe, which is working at a mystery bookstore. And she basically is kind of like a bookseller, but an event planner slash criminal justice sleuth. So she knows the sheriff. She has a good relationship with the sheriff, so they're not trying to make her the murderer. And so in this one, we had a mystery fest going on, and one person dies, and people are like, "Is this part of the mystery fest?" Because they're all like murder mysteries, and they're like, "No, it does not." And so the whole series is about different events or different things that are happening in the town, part of the mystery book sales, and someone dies as always. So I've listened to the first 3 books. I'm actually looking forward to the second book. It comes out next week on audio. They're about 6 hours long. They're easy to listen to. They're mostly available on the Ohio non-resident library card. So if you're looking for a like non-resident library card to find cozies, those are great places to go. And the books are available on Kindle Unlimited if you like to read them. So that's pretty much it. So the next book is Murder Most French. So by which is a Julia Child murder, and basically it's set in the 1940s, early 1950s. I'm not sure. The time is like, but it's essentially Julia Child when she was going to the Cordon Bleu and learning all about French cooking. So her friend, who does not know how to cook, basically is an amateur sleuth, and sometimes they blame Julia, or like actually did the murder, and she's starting to solve it. So it's just fun. It's set in Paris. It's just post-war Paris and trying to figure out the logistics, and then having Julia as kind of like the sidekick, not the main character, but the sidekick is just kind of fun. I've listened to the next book is also, these books are available on Hoopla, so you might be able to find them. They're great. I have an arc for the third book, but I'm actually waiting for the audio because I feel like the audio is just like the experience of just transported to Paris. So that's the Mastering the Art of French Murder. So the next 2 books that I'm looking for are actually comforting. And these are actually not audiobooks. They're actually they're printed books or ebooks, and that's Tis the Season for Revenge, and which is rom-coms. That's really what it comes down to. Long story short, I love to go on rom-coms. They're a little angst, they're just funny, they're fun, they're loving, they're great. There's no like major conflict. Sometimes they don't even have a third eye conflict. It's just like kind of like just like an epilogue, and they feel very comforting. So this one is actually set in the Christmas time. And it starts from Halloween and it ends in, I think, New Year's. And so "'Tis the Season for Revenge" is a Legally Blonde, loosely retelling. So she's been in a long-term relationship with someone. He breaks up with her, same breakup scene, and she wants to have revenge. And so instead of like going to go to law school, she actually dates her ex-boyfriend's partner in the law firm that he works. And it's just fun. There's petty revenge. The rest of the series is all about revenge of some sort. So there's like a Woman Scorned, and then there's like Mean Girls retelling. So if you like the 90s and aughts rom-coms, this series is great for you because it actually has like some of those retellings of those favorite movies. And it's all vibes. It's not conflict. It's not angsty. It's just fun, just to kind of like just a little break. And then the last recommendation that I have is Blushing on the Big Leagues by R.S. Gray. And this is a really, I RS Gray is basically my comfort read. It's someone that I've gone to since 2016. When I got my first KU book, I find these books like they're not like anything like they're not life changing, but they're comfort. And sometimes you might think it's formulaic, but it's just like it's tropey, it's just fun, it's comedic, it's just there. Blushing the Big Leagues, I think this one is the one that there's 2 books in this series. She typically writes standalone, but this one's a 2-book series where they're actually set in New York and they're actually baseball players. And in this one, she's the sister of another book's baseball player person, but he's the new player, and she doesn't want to date baseball players. This one does, because why would you do that? And they ended up like liking each other, and they ended up like hanging out, and then they realized they could have a relationship. So she ended up having to give up her idea of not dating a baseball player. But it's just fun, relaxed, friend group, baseball, New York. She has books set in like Texas, doctors, cowboys. There's a little bit of everything. There's soccer. There's Olympic games. So she has a vast backlist. So if you ever need something comforting, you can pick one of her backlist titles. Most of them are standalone, so you can just do one and done, and that gets you going. So those are my recommendations. I hope you enjoy them.
I enjoyed them. I really did. First off, I want to vouch for Murder Most French, that Julia Child cozy mystery. It's amazing. I love Colleen Cambridge. She has one with Agatha Christie's Housekeeper. And I forgot the name of the Agatha Christie Housekeeper book, but that is so good. Just search Colleen Cambridge, historical cozy mysteries. I love them. But I loved how you were saying like the R.S. Grays, they're kind of formulaic, but they're good. I actually feel that knowing what to expect is comforting. It's why I reread all the books I reread. So it's like, if you know what you're in for, that is comforting. And it sounds sweet, but I think the Tis the Season is the one I'm probably interested in.
Tis the Season is like my go-to. I love Legally Blonde. I don't know. I think I don't know if you know this, but in my job interview to NYU, they asked me a Desert Island question. They try to be all cute. And they're like, what's your Desert Island question is? And like, what movie you came? I was like, Legally Blonde. And they were shocked. They were like, what? And I was like, I'm sorry, but I love Legally Blonde. I actually am a diehard Elwoods. Like, Elwoods is the go-to, goat. And so I had no shame, and I still like revisit, Legally Blonde is still my favorite. Still stand as one of my favorite movies of all time.
I will say Legally Blonde is good, but I'm a Cher gal. See, I'm a Cher stan. I will stan Cher down. So I'm a clueless diehard.
Did you watch the Legally Blonde musical? Because that takes it an extra level.
No.
Listen to the musical. I watched the musical like 5 times, so that tells me. But the musical music, it's so good. That's just like, if you're a Broadway, you must listen to the Legally Blonde musical. And yes, it's
fun.
Yes.
Okay. I think I might. What do you think, Fran?
Yeah, same. And I can vouch for the book too, because I love that book too.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, we are going to dip because Fran is going to be sharing her recommendations, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to share.
I have a hodgepodge of stuff to share with you guys. So comfort to me, much like what Victoria was saying, is about something that I would reread. I don't reread often. So for me, it has to be something where it's either an author that I really, really love, or books that really made an impression, books that I will remember where I was when I was reading it. Like things like that bring me comfort if I'm going to read that again. And also, as far as genres, I do gravitate for comfort to cozy mysteries or historical romance. A lot of my comfort reads tend to be historical romance, and there's going to be quite a bit of historical in my recommendations. Some are historical fiction, some are just straight up historical romance, but generally the historical setting gives me comfort. I don't know why, but also cozy mysteries, and that's something that I've been getting into more recently. So I'm actually going to kick off the recommendations with a couple of cozy mysteries that have romance in them, but also they are perfect for the season because they are holiday cozies. The first one is Later On Will Conspire by Courtney Keisel. So this one, it is part of a series. I read this as a standalone. It works perfectly well as that. And it does have kind of like FBI, the hero is an FBI agent, and he ends up getting roped in with this girl because he's on a mission to help a coworker on something that she's working on. And he somehow gets this girl involved without telling her, obviously, who he is. And he has to go on this cross-country trip with her to retrieve something basically that he gave to her. And it is set during the holidays. It has very much like that spy and that danger vibe, which I really enjoyed. It is also a sweet romance, so no sex in this one, but it is a very sweet story, and I really, really had a lot of fun with that. It's super quick, so if you're looking for a cozy with a little bit of romance and just a lot of festive vibes, this one was a lot of fun, explosions and everything. And another cozy that I actually just read because it came out this week and is super fast, and this one does have sex. It's Holly and Homicide by Alina Jacobs. And it's my first time reading this author. I had a lot of fun reading it. So the heroine, she owns a bakery, and her ex-husband comes in and he's eating a cupcake and he drops dead. Basically, he was poisoned, he drops dead. Everybody thinks that it's her that killed him because he's already moved in with the mistress and she's pregnant. And of course, everybody in town's like, yeah, of course she did it. And she needs a lawyer to, kind of clear her name. So she goes on her amateur sleuth thing to try to figure out who actually was responsible for killing her ex-husband. And this lawyer, who is I think it was the grandson or nephew or something of a lady that she knows, basically volunteers him to be her lawyer. And of course, he thinks that she did it. So he agrees to help her more out of the loyalty to his family member. But he totally thinks that she did it, and he doesn't really want to get involved too much, but he ends up getting roped in with going on this amateur sleuthing and figuring out what happened to her ex-husband. And it was just so much fun. It was just like really something that you don't want to if you don't want to take something too seriously, this is perfect. It has the holiday vibe. It has murder. It has lots of drama, as you could expect with the cheating and all of the stuff. And of course, this one does have sex, like I mentioned before. So if you're looking for that, that's there too. So I had a lot of fun with that one. So those two would be great cozies for the season. But then getting more into my actual comfort reads. The first one that I have for you guys, it's a contemporary, and it's Blue Eye Devil by Lisa Kleypas. So this book is super special for me. It wasn't my first Lisa Kleypas, but Lisa Kleypas is one of those authors that I consider my go-tos for comfort reads. Pretty much any of her books I could just pick up and read. But this one in particular, I really like. I even remember where I was when I was reading certain scenes. Like, it just really made an impact on me. And this series follows the Travis siblings. They're a really wealthy family from Texas. And this particular story is the sister of the family. And she has been through a lot. She came out of an abusive relationship, so an abusive marriage. And she ends up meeting this other guy. And there was a little bit of a love triangle in the first book with him. So they have to have like this basically relationship with a lot of healing. And there's just a very comforting and soothing thing about how their relationship grows and develops, and how he really helps her get like really comfortable with herself more so than getting into another relationship. So I think that was really important to see. And it's just a book that it's just so special. I really love it. And in fact, I was talking to Kelly recently this week about this book. So it came to mind immediately when I thought about comfort reads. So definitely one that I highly recommend, or anything by Lisa Kleypas. The second book that I have is Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. Again, any book by Sarah Addison Allen is basically something that you should pick up for comfort reads. One of the things that I love to read also for comfort reads is magical realism. in this book is a magical realism book. And it's basically the story about two sisters. One of them stayed home in the house that, like, they live in a small town, and they have a reputation, family reputation, because they kind of have this magical thing about them. And they have a magical garden, and there's this apple tree in their backyard that basically they infuse cooking and things like that with emotions and all of this stuff. So the townspeople know a little bit about it, and it's given them a sort of reputation. So one sister stays back home, and she opens her own catering business, and she basically really goes and accepts their family legacy and what that entails. Of course, that also makes her more of a loner in town, so she's more isolated, but she's kind of felt like she was happy with that. And then we have the younger sister who leaves town because she wants nothing to do with any of that. And now, years later, she ends up coming back home, because she's escaping her boyfriend who's been abusive as well. And she comes back to her childhood home to reconnect with her sister. They were estranged, and she comes with her little girl as well. So there's these two sisters that have to reconnect. There's that, old family drama and childhood past and traumas and all of that they have to heal. And that younger sister, of course, has to deal with the fact that she never really accepted those more supernatural things about their family history and what they can do. So she has to learn to accept those things. So all of those things, but there's a little bit of romance too with a neighbor. So all of those things really make this one really, really special and heartwarming, and just a really heartfelt story. Absolutely loved it. And again, anything by Sarah Addison Allen is just the perfect kind of cozy book. The next book that I have is What the Wind Knows by Amy Harmon. This one is a historical fiction. It does have quite a bit of romance, but it's not technically a historical romance. And I absolutely love this story. It also does have magical realism a little bit. It has time travel in it. Our heroine is a author, and kind of like in today's world, she's an author, and she's very connected with her Irish heritage, and that is because of her grandfather. So when her grandfather passes away, she wants to honor his last wish, which is to go and spread his ashes back home in Ireland. And when she goes to do that, she's on the lake and she's doing that. There's this fog that comes in, and as she's going through this fog, she comes out, and she's basically been transported back in time to the 1920s, like 1921, which is like dead in the middle of the fight for Irish independence. And she's rescued by this doctor when she comes out, and that doctor takes her home to take care of her basically from her injuries. And he is the guardian of this little boy who happens to be her grandfather when he was young. And so, of course, they think that because she looks so much like his mother, which would have been her great grandmother, that had basically disappeared. So they think that she's actually his mother that's come back. And she assumes that role, and she pretends to be her grandfather's mother. And of course, there's plenty of things that she knows about the future and things that she wants to maybe try to prevent from happening and all of this stuff. So again, like I said, it's going on in the middle of Irish independence, and there's a lots of historical figures and all of that that's also involved in the story. It is just a beautiful, beautiful book. The prose is beautiful, the story, the romance, and also the connection that you see of this woman with her grandfather from when he was a little boy, but also, taking into account how close she was with him in future, or, in like the current day before he passed away. So really beautiful story. I highly, highly recommend. And then I also have The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare, which is my classic historical romance for something fun and cute. This is a marriage of convenience between a disfigured duke who needs a wife because he needs an heir, and the heroine is a seamstress. So she basically accepts this deal to marry him because she needs security and freedom. So it is total opposites attract, He's super grumpy, but really just a fun story. Tessa Dare's books are always really cute and funny. So definitely one that I always read any of her books for comfort. And then the last book that I have is a classic I would consider, and it's A Knight in Shining Armor by Dude Deveraux. So this book, I thought I would hate it. And it is still to this day a book that I think about all the time. So it's basically time travel. It is a book written in the 80s, sorry. And it's about a woman that gets left on vacation basically by her asshole boyfriend, and she's crying at this church, and this knight appears in front of her from the 16th century, and she has to help him basically figure out what happened to him so that he can go back in time and fix it basically. And you have this medieval knight running through the streets of today's world, and let's call it today's world, but it is the 1980s. But it was just so much fun, and it is just really a classic. And I've read plenty of kind of retellings from this one, but it still remains an adorable classic for sure.
Awesome. I have to say, the Holly one, the first two that you sent, I was like, oh my God, they are so cute. So I was very interested in, something we conspire, and then a
Yeah.
Holly book. I was like, oh, that's so cute.
And they're so quick to read too. They're really short and fun.
I
think that's
borrow it. I borrowed that one while you were talking. I was like, I was like, oh, this isn't for me. But I have to say, the Duchess deal, basically, like the opening scene where she comes in the wedding dress that she
Yes.
gets her debts paid is like the classic. Like, I am here wearing a wedding dress. It doesn't fit me. And then the cat that she adopts.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I like the fact though that the two kind of seasonal themed reads, and they seemed cutesy, they're short.
Yeah.
So if you need a quick read,
Yeah.
if you are busy trying to reach your reading goals as well, or you just want something without the commitment, gravitate to those shorter books.
Yeah, for
For
sure.
sure. Okay, so everyone, let me tell you what we have coming up next. So these are our upcoming shows. We have winter reading next week. Then we're going to get into some of the best books of the year. So yes, we see what the New York Times is doing, what Goodreads is doing, and so on. We have our best books, okay? It's not a popularity contest like Goodreads. It's not overly literary like the New York Times, okay? These are books we read and loved and had fun with. So you're going to want to tune in for that one. And then we're also going to share some of the books we're eagerly anticipating for 2025. So some books that we're looking forward to reading that are really cool and fun. We hope you'll come and join us again. We gather every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, right? So we had a Thanksgiving show. That was a pre-recording. Today we're live. We're going to be live again. And then over the holiday week, we'll do pre-recordings again, but you're going to have content every Thursday, 7 p.m. We're not leaving you hanging, okay? So you'll have stuff to watch. So that's what you can look forward to. I hope you'll join us. I hope you'll tell a friend to tell a friend. But outside of that, I think that's it for today's show. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And again, tell your friends. And we hope to see you next week, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.